Sit with me in stillness as I share my story of how I encountered God through contracting and finding out my HIV status. I was in a healthy relationship, and so I thought maybe for the person I was then, I settled for something that had a form of godliness. It was 1 week before Valentine's Day. Out of nowhere, my then mom in love happened to tell me that her son's ex-girlfriend found STD tablets in his bedroom. This revelation comes shortly after being aware of a foreign smell from my lady parts that I had already told my ex about. On the 13th of February, I went to the doctor for an STD test. The doctor suggested that I test for HIV too. Well, I am no stranger to HIV testing, and so I agreed to it. He drew my bloods, and 2 days later, on the 13th of February, the results were back and I tested positive for HIV. I called his mom and declared the news to her. "Call him and tell him, Nosy," she replied. I called him and I broke the news to him. I swear, I heard him loud and clear when he said, open quote, "I tested before I slept with you and I was negative," close quote. I asked that we visit the clinic together, but he wanted to first test alone. I respected that. On the 14th of February, he called me to tell me that he tested negative for HIV. I was losing my mind. My world shrank right before my eyes. I cared to find out what sort of test he did because he gave an impression that he had only done the rapid test. He then mentions that he drew blood too and he was advised to collect his results on the 12th of March. I thought, now this sounds unreal. I was still in contact with his mom, who then suggested that I get a second opinion. I was in denial, and so getting a second opinion was a great need. I went to the same clinic he went to for his test. His mom, who works at the same clinic, had already booked in advance for me to just go in and get it over and done with. I had solid plans to end my life after my retest. Strangely, I had asked a friend I trusted to accompany me to the clinic's visit. Special shout out to Ntombi Shabalala from Orlando East for holding space for me in the way that she did. It's well received, Mama. Thank you so much. I needed physical hands to hold me. The suicidal ideations were very much present, but I still needed to be held. Ntombi was there when the rapid test showed 2 red lines. I cried a river. That very moment, I died. Just like that, my old self was gone and the new self had come. My bloods were collected yet again, and I received my results after 2 days from the day of testing. The next thing I knew, I did not want to commit suicide. Now, for the very first time, I wanted to live. Okay, now that I tested positive for HIV, where to from here? This was a question I posed to myself as I journaled that very night. The best decision was to accept the closure I did not receive from him. I gave myself closure. I made sure to put an end to all communication, even when he said he wants to support me. Support? How? When he could not grant me the one thing I needed the most. I officially ended the relationship to my ex. We both had served our purpose in each other's lives. He was the perfect encounter I needed to meet God. And so he was used as a vessel to deliver me right into the hands of God. Maybe the how and the when really matters not anymore. What matters is that I met God. I died, but the Spirit in me brought me back to life. I got to start afresh with experience and positively. I shared the news with the few individuals who mattered the most. I started the ARV treatment. I had a lot of time in my hands now that I am unemployed. Time to speak to myself. Time to think. Time to sit in stillness and listen to myself. Time to hear my silent thoughts. I was inspired by the second chance to do things differently. The one thing that was meant to take me out gave me life. I met God and I met myself. Eventually, I pulled back from everything and everyone. I could not afford alcohol, and so I convinced myself to quit. I wasn't about to depend on no one to buy me alcohol. I then added working out to my morning routine, and as my body took a different form, I fell in love with myself, and suddenly I did not fit in anywhere. There was nowhere else I could go to, but only within myself. My curiosity in myself became a game changer for me. I befriended nature. I did gardening. I connected to plants. I related to animals. I followed the sun. I drew closer to my children, and in turn, I learned to be a child again and play. I became present. I had to return to the clinic after 3 months, and fast forward to May the 23rd. I took Ntombi again with me. The nurse reading my blood test results was happy, but I did not know why she was excited until she explained that I have an undetectable viral load. At this point, I was praising God because He promised me healing. And so is my word that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it. And that is Isaiah chapter 55, verse 11. I did not find God in church, and so I am not recruiting for a church. I found God within myself. God saw me live against myself. He reached out to me, standing at the door of my heart, and I answered the call. I died, but I awakened with Christ and God. Now what was sent to break me built me up, and I am right where I need to be with God ordering my steps. When Saul encounters God, he had a terrible relationship with himself, with his body, the church, the members of Christ. And when God could not bear being housed in the body of Saul, he used his rod and staff. Yeah, God used HIV to get my attention. He struck me with HIV and altered my whole DNA. I got the harshest yet the best lessons from this experience. I grew to love myself. I saw my worth and I met the newest version of myself. This was pretty much the most painful periods of my life. But above all else, it was an encounter with God that I didn't know I needed. Especially for me, who had no regard for who God was when I was living against myself, persecuting ibandla lakhe, his temple. I have always been well versed, but the truth is that I had no personal knowledge of him. I was blindly leading the blind, even as a self-proclaimed atheist. I am here having the most positive perspective on life as a whole. I have so much to live for and I am content. I wrote my ex a letter, 7 pages long, handwritten, telling him that I am not mad at him. He was chosen to awaken me. He moved in all the ways he was instructed to move to align me to my truth. I met with him to hand him the handwritten letter, the only draft I had. To my surprise, he had a gift for me. It's safe to call it a breakup gift. It was a lamp, and I heard Spirit say, "Let there be light." From then on, no contact was ever made from my side. Thank you.